Coming up now, we've got a guest joining us. Let me ask the producers, is he on the line? Not yet. Okay, I'm going to give you an intro of what this is all about. He is a U.S. Army medic, and his name is Sean, how do I pronounce his last name? Niemi or Niemi? Niemi? I think it's Niemi. Okay, Sean Niemi, who has gone through a very, very difficult time. He was court-martialed, essentially, went through a court-martial process. Be sure to keep getting him on the line. Let me know when he's on. He did not want to be vaccinated by the military's experimental vaccines. And so he filed for a religious exemption. He went to his pastor, and explained his beliefs. And by the way, he's being represented by attorney Patricia Finn, who is a vaccine rights or an anti-vaccine rights attorney who has been featured on Infowars and Infowars Nightly News as well. So he applied for the exemption, and that exemption, according to military law, is allowed to be granted to you as long as your commanding officer agrees to it. Well, his commanding officer, for some reason, did not agree to it and put him through what he describes as a hell type of experience. Oh, okay, his name is Niemi, I'm being told. That's the correct pronunciation of his last name. He went through hell. And he's now out of the military, and then the military actually took money out of his paycheck, he says, actually taking money from him while he was trying to get back on his feet with his family. It sounds like this is a story of just incredible medical abuse in the military. That's why we wanted to have Sean on the Alex Jones Show today. Sean, thank you for joining us, and welcome to the show. Can you hear me, Sean?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Yeah, I can see you. Thank you. Welcome to the show. How are you feeling, man?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing just fantastic. I gave a brief introduction to your situation there, but tell us in your own words. We've got a couple minutes before the next break. Go ahead and run down what happened to you in your own words, please.
All right. Back in 2009, if you all remember that we had a little bit of an H1N1 scare, or an invented scare. I found out that the immunizations that they were handing out, that the military was handing out to us, was an experimental version. It wasn't the same version that the rest of the world was getting. U.S. military was the only people getting this experimental version. I decided at that point I wasn't going to give it to my soldiers. I wasn't going to take it myself.
And what was your position there? You were a U.S. Army medic, correct?
Yes, I was the cavalry troops senior medic.
And what group were you with? Where were you stationed?
I was stationed in Afghanistan at the time with the 10th Mountain Division.
Okay, all right. We're going to go to break. Your story, please continue with us on the other side of this break. We want to find out what happened to you, what you did about it, and what this means for all soldiers in the military today. Right here on The Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. We'll be right back with all that and much more. We're continuing with U.S. Army medic Sean Niemi. That's the right pronunciation. He joins us by Skype to tell us what happened to him in the military and his attempts to protect his body, his health, from the experimental vaccines that are being forced on soldiers every day, it seems. So go ahead, Sean. You were telling us where you were stationed. Please continue with your story.
Yes. As I said, in 2009, I was in Afghanistan. Stationed there for a year deployment with the 10th Mountain Division. I refused to receive or give the H1N1 experimental vaccine at that time. It was received at the time with a little bit of distrust from my chain of command. But once I explained to them that it was an experimental version, I didn't feel safe giving it to soldiers when I didn't even have a pamphlet that normally comes with medications and immunizations. We had no literature.
Really?
At all.
So they just said, here it is, take it, and we're not going to provide any information about it. Just trust us, basically. Is that what they said?
It was generic labels on the bottles. All it said was keep refrigerated, and you know, this is the dosage.
Wow.
That's what we were told about it.
So what what caused you to have red flags about it? Why would you even suspect the safety of it in the first place?
Well, part of the biggest reason that I questioned it to begin with was the fact that there was no literature. I'm kind of OCD about making sure that I read all the literature to all the medications that I'm supposed to give to my soldiers. When there was no literature brought with the vaccines, I requested from the Brigade Medical Services Office, you know, hey, you guys forgot to send the literature with this. And they said, no, there isn't any. Just follow the directions on the labels that are on the bottles, and you'll be fine. So at that point, I decided that it was time to look a little deeper into things. Found out that there was actually 3 different batches, 3 different formulas of the H1N1 vaccines that were being mass-produced for human use. 2 of them were being distributed to civilians all over the world. The 3rd one was being distributed to U.S. military members only. That also raised a couple of red flags.
Yeah, the special soldier edition with no documentation. So let me ask you this. How many soldiers were you in charge of in terms of their medical care?
I don't remember the exact number. It was a little over 100 of the U.S. soldiers from my unit and a couple other units that were co-located with us, and then approximately 250 Afghan national forces that we did different missions in conjunction with them. Okay,
and where did you receive your medical training, and can you describe it just briefly so everybody has a background of your medical background, so to speak?
Yeah. After basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, I went to AIT's Advanced Individual Training, which is medic school at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. Spent, I think it was about 4.5 to 5 months there, learning not only an EMT civilian side of emergency medicine, but also the Army side of tactical combat casualty care, which is a little more, I don't know what the exact word would be. It's a little more goal oriented in keeping people alive, not so much keeping them pretty.
Well, keeping them alive is a good thing, but then, so it sounds like with the vaccines, you were concerned about the implications of that experimental vaccine on the health of the people whose health you were, at least in part, responsible for. So when did you start getting resistance to this, and how did that emerge in your experience there? What happened to you? Because I saw at one point you were being threatened with even being fragged.
Correct.
Lead us to that point. What happened?
After that deployment was over, we got back to Fort Drum, New York, and started the reset for the next upcoming deployment, which was going to be about a year to a year and a half out. So we started train up, reset, getting new equipment, getting new soldiers. At that point, we have to go through a medical screening.
All right, Sean, I got to interrupt you. We got one more break right here and then a long segment on the other side of this. But I want to hear your story of how you got threatened with even being killed if you didn't go along with their vaccine agenda. That straight ahead. Stay with us right here on The Alex Jones Show.
Now, there are hundreds of great products at InfoWarsTeam.com, but I want to point out the 3 that have helped me lose 37 pounds in just 2 months. Products like Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Pollen Burst, and Rebound. When I started taking the Tangy Tangerine and other products every day, I lost more than 37 pounds in just 2 months. Now that's results. I want to challenge my listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com and to order just 3 of their products, and you will see the changes in the way you look, feel, and in your appetite almost immediately. Start your journey to health and wellness today. InfoWarsTeam.com.
This was Mike Adams filling in. Today we're continuing our interview with Sean Niemi, U.S. Army medic, who was just telling us what happened to him with the experimental military vaccines that he didn't want to give to his men because he thought, well, they might not be safe, and there was no literature that came with them. So sorry about the interruption there, Sean. Go right on ahead with relating your story. Please go ahead.
Yes. So like I was saying, part of the preparation for the next upcoming deployment was we would have to go and have our medical records screened, get whatever immunization shots, eye tests, dental screenings that's needed in order to go overseas. At that point, I decided, well, I'd already decided up until that point that I wasn't going to receive any more of the immunizations, vaccines. I talked with my wife, and we were in agreement that because of our religious convictions, that it wasn't right for us anymore for me to be receiving these. That at that point, I put in what's called a religious exemption request to basically give me an exemption from any and all vaccines, immunizations, prophylactic medications such as the malaria pills.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
I said yes, and now that's a normal accepted procedure in the military. So why wasn't that accepted in the chain of command? What happened there?
Well, part of the problem is that sort of an exemption is only approval denial up until company level commander. It doesn't have to go any higher than him. And my company level commander in a cavalry unit, it's called a troop. I don't think he liked me very much.
I have an affidavit here. Oh, I'm sorry, your voice cut out.
That's okay. I was just saying that there had been a history between him and myself during different training exercises and such. And I really don't think he liked me very much. So he had already made up his mind before he had looked into the regulations and whether or not I was even allowed to request such a thing. I'm pretty sure he already made up his mind that he was going to deny it and give me an order to go get shots.
So it sounds like this was a punitive, vengeful type of action targeted to you personally because of personal disagreements. Is that a fair characterization?
I would definitely say so, yes.
And then I have an affidavit here, sworn affidavit by a Sergeant Medic Team Leader, Anthony Comau, who supports your story and says that this captain began to refer to you as, quote, bacteria man, and said they want to throw you inside a wall locker and throw a hand grenade in with you.
Correct.
So that's a pretty serious accusation and a serious crime in the military, if true, indeed.
Yes. Even the act of stating anything about fratricide is actually a crime. It's against the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So even if he didn't ever try to go through with any kind of a plan like that, just stating that he was thinking about it is actually a crime in the military.
Okay, wow. And so there were witnesses to this threat that, according to this paper, was made by Captain Rapaski. Is that the name?
Correct. Captain Rapaski, yes.
Captain Rapaski. And so what happened next? I mean, you're out of the military now, so how did you get out with an honorable discharge? What was the situation?
Well, right after he denied my request for religious exemption, he immediately gave me a direct order to go get all the vaccines and shots and so on and so forth that I needed for the upcoming deployment. I told him at that point, sir, with all due respect to your grade and position, I cannot in good conscience do that because it violates my religious beliefs. And at that point, he had one of the other NCOs in the medical platoon escort me to the readiness center, at which time I told the team leader there, I'm not getting the shots, go ahead and take me back.
Did they try to force the shots onto you at that point?
No, they, with the smaller women that are nurses at the readiness center, I don't think anybody was going to force me to do anything.
Okay, so you stood your ground, and then what happened?
We get back to the unit area. And I'm informed at that moment that that Captain Rapaski was going to be filing papers to request an Article 15. And what an Article 15 is, it's again another kind of punishment under Uniform Code of Military Justice, to where I could lose all the rank that I had gained, lose a large sum of money. I could be put onto restrictions, so on and so forth. There's a long list of possible punishments that go along with an Article 15 punishment.
By the way, give out your website for those who want to learn more about this after the show. What's the web address where people can hear or read about your experience?
Yeah, I have a blog. It's vaccinebattles.wordpress.com.
Okay, vaccinebattles.wordpress.com. That's a good name. So there, are you continuing to blog there and give updates to the developing elements of the story?
Well, I'm trying to keep up with it. I'm husband, father, so
right.
Get a little busy. I'm getting ready to go to school next month too. So
all right. So section or Article 15, they tried to get you onto that. Did they succeed, or what happened?
The interesting thing about this is that under an Article 15 proceeding, I have the right to either accept the punishment from Article 15 or request court-martial, which is basically I go to court, tell the judge my side, possibly tell a jury of my peers, so to speak, my side of it, and we let the judge decide instead of letting the commander just go ahead and decide what he wants to do with me. So I obviously requested court-martial because I firmly believe that I was right. I don't remember ever signing away my religious rights or any other constitutionally guaranteed rights when I signed up for the military.
Right.
So I requested court-martial, at which point pretty much everybody in the room, honestly, I thought that everybody had saw a ghost at that moment. Because apparently people don't request court-martials very often.
well, I'll tell you, military justice. But so take us through that. What happened at the court-martial hearing?
Well, the court-martial proceedings actually lasted for over a year, at which point I'd gotten a court-ordered military attorney, guess that I don't mention his name.
Yes.
I had also acquired for myself civilian attorney, Patricia Finn. Between the two of them, they kept me going. One of them would say, just take whatever deal you can get. The other one would say, keep fighting. And they would, the prosecution would come back with another offer, and then it would be role reversal. One would say, that sounds like a pretty good deal. The other one would say, no, keep fighting. So it went back and forth, and I was under no impression that I was ever going to give up because I felt that I was right. And if that meant being convicted and going to federal prison at Fort Leavenworth for a year, then that's what I would do. Let
me ask you this, though. What was the opinion of the soldiers whose health you were responsible for as a medic? Did they support your decision not to have them injected with an experimental vaccine, or did they want the vaccine? What was their take?
Well, I would say that an overwhelming number were very supportive. I had already known most of those soldiers for a couple of years, and they trusted me implicitly. If I said, you don't need this, then they would fight to the end saying, I don't need this injection, this shot. If Doc says it, and it's the word of God as far as I'm concerned.
Now, in retrospect, got to ask you, we know that the H5N1 pandemic was mostly a fraud. It was designed. I mean, we covered a lot of the fraudulent news today about what's come out about the vaccine fraud from one company in particular, whistleblowers coming out. And we know that the H5N1 pandemic was a fraud designed to sell vaccines. So as you monitor all of this news coming out, doesn't this really vindicate your decision? I mean, there was no pandemic happening over there that vaccine would have stopped.
Right. The worst part about all of that is that the entire time that we were deployed during the supposed pandemic, I got reports on a weekly basis about in-country medical status for all the units in country. And I don't remember seeing a single soldier that was positive with H1N1, H5N1, or any other swine flu derivative.
That's because it was a hoax, man. The whole thing was a hoax.
Exactly.
And so let me tell you, let me give you a little bit of behind the scenes too. What this is the drug companies making money by treating U.S. soldiers like chemical pin cushions, and then convincing the higher ups in the military to just, spend all this money on the vaccines. The drug companies go cash the checks at the bank, and the J.P. Morgan controller bank, by the way, and then the soldiers get treated like human guinea pigs. So you were trying to stop that, and it seems like you did so from a rational, ethical basis in the protection of the lives and health of the men who you were responsible for. So, in my opinion, you should be given a medal or something for doing that. But instead, they wanted to throw you to the wolves.
Correct. It was tougher on my family, really, than it was on me. I've dealt with the military, at that point for about 6 years. I knew how they are. And I already knew that we're basically considered to be just big, dumb animals there to enforce foreign policy.
Right.
So.
All right, well, tell us then, how did this conclude?
Okay, so my military attorney is actually the one that found this little-known regulation where if any decision goes against the military's ideas, and it's based on a real, honest, sincerely held religious belief, then that soldier can request from the Secretary of the Army, in this case, John McHugh, to be released because of, I forget the exact wording, but it's called a Chapter 5-3, and you can look that up on Google, pops right up. Okay. But basically the wording that I got in my letter from Secretary of the Army McHugh was, we're very sorry, Specialist Niemi, that the Army is no longer able to abide by your religious beliefs, so please accept our apologies, and here's an honorable discharge. You can keep all of your benefits, your Veterans Affairs benefits, GI Bill, so on and so forth.
So that sounded like good news, but then something else happened, right?
Oh, more things are happening on a daily basis, it seems like.
So you got out with an honorable discharge, and you were supposed to have your benefits intact.
Correct. So in my last, I guess it was about 3 or 4 days in the military, I'm doing all of the check the box, turn all this gear back in, go to finance, make sure that my final paycheck is going to be okay. When finance tells me that supposedly I owe a part of my reenlistment bonus back.
So okay, how much was your reenlistment bonus?
It was $13,500 back in 2007.
So now, because you're exiting the military, they argued that you needed to pay a portion of that back?
Correct.
And how much did that come to?
Just under $5,000.
So they docked your final paycheck, or what did they do? Send you a bill?
Well, both, actually. They took the entire final paycheck and then sent me a bill for almost $1,000.
And of course, you had no job. I mean, you just got out of the military. You had no employment at that time, right?
Correct. That's another thing that happened along the way out was all military medics are trained and certified as emergency medical technicians. Well, when I went to recertify earlier this year, well before my recertification date was due, I was told basically that I didn't have enough classes, enough of the continuing education unit classes to recertify. So I, of course, went back through my files, pulled out all of my diplomas, all of my little, certificates and whatnots, and found out, not only did I have enough, I had more than enough. I had an excess of continuing education hours needed to recertify my EMT. I called back every other day to both the National Registry of EMTs in San Antonio and my local medical training facility at Fort Drum and tried to get it straightened out, but as of right now, I'm still not licensed.
Well, wait a minute. Do you think that somebody in an act of revenge is messing with your records to deny you employment? Is that your theory, or is this just some paperwork snafu that the military is sometimes famous for?
Well, at first I thought, okay, you know, military, going between a military organization and a civilian organization, paperwork's going to get messed up. Computers are going to be down sometimes. Okay, fine. But after about 3 months of arguing back and forth with these people on both sides, both of them blaming the other one, of course.
Meanwhile, you're out of work. You can't get work as an EMT.
Right. So.
Okay, so is this situation still not resolved at this point? What are you doing for work right now?
Right now, I'm unemployed. I'm getting ready to start possibly next week or the week after with Volunteer Fire Squad here in East Tennessee, and I'm going to school next month, going back to college.
Wow. What words do you have for other soldiers in the military or people considering going into the military? I mean, you've been through quite an experience here. Do you have some wisdom to share with others who may be considering that?
Well, to the people that are already in, I would, before you file a religious exemption request, I would ask the commander, your unit commander, ask your first sergeant, ask your chain of command, what do you think of this? If they tell you flat out that they're not going to approve it, then expect the same type of treatment that I got. If they tell you that they're open to take a look at it, then go ahead and file it. It's the regulation dealing with that is AR 40-562.
All right, we're gonna go to break here. We'll be right back. Stay with us, Sean. We'll continue with you on the other side here on the Alex Jones Show. Be right back.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done has been right.
U.S. Army medic Sean Niemi is continuing with us. We're about to wrap this up. Sean, I want to say that you know, on behalf of all Americans, I'm ashamed at the way that the U.S. government treats its soldiers in so many cases. Just, you know, the Veterans Administration treatment that soldiers are given, but this thing, the way they treated you, is an embarrassment. And I want to wish you well in your civilian life, and ask if you have any final words you'd like to add to this interview.
Like I was saying before the break, any soldiers, current soldiers, or any other service members, the regulations are a little different for Air Force, Navy, Marines, but anybody that has questions, feel free to ask me. I put out the blog address. I have links to my YouTube page and Facebook account also on there. Feel free to ask. I can help guide you through the very, very ridiculously difficult path of trying to get a religious exemption. For soldiers, service members that are thinking about joining, I would say don't wait till you get to your unit. Try to get your exemption with your recruiter. It's a lot easier to get an exemption before you go in than after you get there.
Well said. And the web address is vaccinebattles.wordpress.com. Sean Niemi, thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Mike. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Take care. By the way, we have an article about that situation. It should go up tomorrow morning on naturalnews.com with some more details about Sean's situation. We've been investigating that for roughly a week or so. You know, I think bottom line here, some of what we've gone over today, you know, the nation has a sacred responsibility to treat its soldiers with respect and dignity. And that is absolutely not happening. That was just one example that we saw with Sean there. The truth is, these experimental vaccines, which are so often based on complete medical quackery and fraud, these vaccines are sold between from the drug companies to the government with these under-the-table deals, these secret deals with kickbacks and bribes, and all these kinds of incentives to the decision makers, and then they're dumped essentially onto the troops. The troops are treated as a biological vaccine disposal system, so that the vaccine companies can just make more money selling a vaccine. They don't even have any proof that that it works or that it's safe. They don't even include documentation of any kind whatsoever. There's virtually no testing done for long-term safety and efficacy of these vaccines. Across the vaccine industry, you're looking at runaway total criminality and fraud throughout the vaccine industry, and unfortunately, that spills over into the military. Speaking of the military, by the way, check this out. $9.2 billion was spent in just 4 days, according to a BusinessInsider.com article. That's up from $4 billion the week before. And $6 billion of that was used to pay 11 commercial shipping companies to ship Department of Defense stuff around the planet. So there go your taxpayer dollars. And check this out. Hey, there's $146 million of money that was sent to the Boeing company for foreign arms deals. This is to provide weapons to nations like the Republic of Korea, and then Taiwan, Saudi Arabia, India. Shouldn't the customers buy their own military gear? Why do taxpayers have to pay to build missiles to ship over to North Korea for their defense? Shouldn't they buy their own stuff? I mean, come on. This is crazy. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. It's been great being with you on the show here on The Alex Jones Show. I want to thank the crew for doing a great job, and thank Sean Niemi and John Rappaport for being with us today. Get informed, folks. Get informed, and realize it's not just an info war. There's also a spiritual war going on. Get informed. We can win this thing together. Retransmission begins now. Join us on Nightly News. This is Mike Adams. Take care.
Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.